Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 1256. All this March, I've been celebrating Women's History Month by interviewing 21 inspiring automotive enthusiasts who are women in the automotive industry. And here's another.
The real secret of success is enthusiasm.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, automotive enthusiasts. I'm revved up and so excited to introduce today's very special guest calling in from beautiful Pacific Palisades, California, Sue Callaway. Hey, Sue, are you buckled up and ready for a fun ride?
Mark, my 5-point harness is locked and cinched.
Very nice answer. I love it. Sue Callaway is an entrepreneur, an award-winning journalist and author, media marketing pioneer, and automotive insider. She has built and transformed global brands for Time Inc., Wenner Media, and Hearst, co-founded Fortune's most powerful women summit, and innovated marketing and content platforms for brands from Esquire and Jaguar to TrueCar and the Auto 100. She is the founder and CEO of Glovebox Media, a boutique agency dedicated to bringing brands' best stories to life, growing loyalty, and driving engagement and transactions. Previously, she was the EVP, Editorial Director at Edelman, where she oversaw content strategy and creation and crisis and media training for global clients, including Nissan, INFINITI, Datsun, HP, Bridgestone, and many others. Sue is the senior editor, automotive for Time Inc., overseeing the automotive industry coverage, digital, video, and print for Fortune, Sports, Illustrated, Time, and Money magazines. You will also find Sue judging on the lawns of the most prestigious Concours events around the country. You are one busy lady. So, Sue, I've told our listeners a little bit about you. Would you take a brief moment, share a little bit more about your career and your very obvious passion for automobiles?
Well, thanks, Mark. I guess in my career and in my life, I've always voted with my feet, or my right foot to be more exact. From my very first job at a regional magazine called New England Monthly as a fact checker, I quickly realized that the Skip Barber Racing School was down the road at Lime Rock, and I begged the editor-in-chief to send me, and he did. I wrote a little story, and I ended up getting calls from 2 New York magazines, Condé Nast Traveler and Harper's Bazaar, oddly, to write car stories for them. So I was sort of off and running early, and I really, in all my years at media companies, kind of parallel tracked the racing, which I always, and the writing about it, and the day job. Of course, the day job and the moonlighting writing about it never paid for the racing, but, you know, we all know what that deal looks like. Finally, I found myself at Fortune through the 90s, did a lot of writing about the industry there and got very involved, done a lot of levels. And that was when the gentleman who was CEO of the company at the time, Jack Nasser, came up to me at a Pebble Beach dinner and said, "What do you really want to do with your life? Because I think you should come work for Ford." And I said, "How dare you? That is so inappropriate. I am a journalist on duty." And so a year later, I went and talked to him as the first journalist in after the Firestone crisis came out. And at the end of the interview, he said, "All right, I tried to do this before and you practically hit me. I'm going to try one more time. I think you should come work at Ford Motor Company." So I did, and they put me in a marketing role, put me through a marketing program, and I had the pleasure of working with brands like Aston Martin, Jaguar, Land Rover, Volvo, Lincoln. And, you know, to me, to be on the inside of the industry like that was such a rare opportunity. And I learned so much. It made me a much better journalist, a much better marketing person, communicator. And, you know, through it all, for me, it's my real passion and desire to get behind the wheel of great cars that fuels everything I do. So, you know, I've done Carrera Panamericana twice and lived to tell about it, judged a bunch of car shows, you know, love all sorts of racing. And I've always told my brothers that my ideal way to go out of this world is off the Corniche in Monaco in a beautiful Ferrari. And they always say, "Please, could you make it a kit car and leave us the car, the Ferrari?"
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Well, you've done so much. I think it's absolutely spectacular. And our good mutual friend, Deb Pollack, who's been a guest on the show here, said, you've got to have Sue on your show for Women's History Month and dedicating this whole month here at Cars Yeah to women in the industry. I think it's fantastic that you're here. I think we're going to have a great time sharing your story. But as we continue and as we begin, I guess I should say, I always like to ask my guests for a success quote or a mantra. This is some kind of saying that's been instrumental in forming your life and your success. It's a really nice way to get the inspirational tires turning here on Cars Yeah. Let's not go off the cliff there in Monaco. So Sue, take the wheel.
Thanks, Mark. So I will share it. This is probably a little bit longer an answer than some of your guests have given, but it's so important to me. Early in my Fortune career, I went to Italy, to Maranello. I had the chance to interview Luca de Montezemolo, who was chairman of Ferrari at the time. And as I was leaving his office, he stopped me and he said, wait, this is something I give to the important people who come into my office, and I think you'll understand it. I give it to every employee. And it was a printed card, and I will read it to you. The real secret of success is enthusiasm. You can do anything if you have enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is the yeast that makes your hope rise to the stars. Enthusiasm is the sparkle in your eye. It is the swing in your gait, the grip of your hand, the irresistible surge of your will and your energy to execute your ideas. Enthusiasts are fighters. They have fortitude. They have staying qualities. Enthusiasm is at the bottom of all progress. With it, there is accomplishment. Without it, there are only alibis.
Wow. I love that. I've never heard that before. I might borrow that and put that on a card and hand it out to the great people that I meet or the great people I have on this show. That is wonderful. I love it.
Thank you. I did too. And, I had it specially framed because on the back of the card, I can send you pictures of this, is of course the prancing horse. So when I framed it, I had the framer cut a hole in the back so you could see the horse.
Oh,
so
yeah, please do. Yeah, send me a picture of that. That is awesome. I love that. What a wonderful way to go through life. And of course, it makes sense coming from Ferrari. I too been very fortunate to visit the Ferrari factory, I think, 4 times now. And you can just sense it there. It's a very special place, very unique place. And of course, we all know the mark and the brand that is Ferrari and how that's just probably one of the most recognized brands in the entire planet when people see that prancing horse. So very nice. I love it. Well, let's go back in time. You are undoubtedly an automotive enthusiast. You love to race. You love to drive. I would love for you to share a story that instigated your personal passion for cars. Is there a pivotal moment in your life when you knew you were indeed a car gal?
Yes. In fact, it was not when I was 5 and I got yelled at by my mother for getting out of the car at the gas station because we had no seatbelts to smell the gas fumes, nor was it when I cut the wheels off her Electrolux vacuum cleaner at 7 to build my own car and learned what an axle was.
That's awesome.
It was when I was 13 and my father had just bought a Porsche, sadly not a 911, it was a 928, I will be honest. And he was doing a little club racing and dragged me up to Watkins Glen and made me hang out for hours while he went out on the track and had fun and spun out. So I was sitting on the wall by the pits and there were some other activities going on at the Glen that weekend. And this car starts coming into the pits. It's a race car, and it kind of dies in front of me. And this guy jumps out, takes off his helmet, and he looks at me and goes, "Hey, would you mind helping me push?" It was Paul Newman in a Datsun.
No way. Oh, my gosh. Wow.
One look at him, Mark, and I couldn't care less that he was a movie star. He was a race car driver, and I asked him 100 questions about the car, and I got to meet him many years later, and he pretended to remember, but his kindness and his focus, and I think he really saw that I really wanted to know what it was like to drive that car and how did he get to do that, which kind of made him smile because I was young. So that was the moment. At that moment, the fumes were in deep forever.
Well, no doubt. What a magnificent story. And 928s, I was not a big fan when they came out, but I got invited to a Porsche driving experience in San Diego where I was living at the time. I had a 911 and I went down there and they teamed us up with drivers that Porsche had brought over to drive around the stadium parking lot and do the cone thing and all that. And who they teamed me up with was Vic Elford, of course, a famous Porsche race car driver. And I got in the car and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're Vic Elford. And he asked me, what do you think of this new car? And I said, honestly, I don't like it. And he asked me why. We talked a little bit about it. And he said, Mark, by the end of today, you're going to love this car. And I have to say, I did fall in love with the car. It was absolutely magnificent to drive and fast and just incredible. Maybe it was because Vic was there. It kind of helped nudge my love along a little bit, because he was kind of an icon back then, and he's been a guest on my podcast here. But man, Paul Newman, when you're 13, there you go. Yeah, the needle's in deep for sure.
Well, Vic Elford, actually, for a story I did for Fortune, we literally rented Bridgehampton track the last day it was open. And I was doing a story on high performance off-roading vehicles as well as on track. And I somehow convinced Vic to come and be my coach and my partner in this story. And I just, there's no one like him.
Yeah.
He's
wow.
extraordinary.
How cool. And especially in an iconic, legendary place like that. I mean, you have two icons, Bridgehampton and Elford, and he's sitting there coaching and driving with you. Oh my gosh, you've lived a life, Sue, for sure. Well, let's talk about that life a little bit. And what I want to do is take you down a road of a great challenge or even a failure you faced along the way. And the reason I ask this question is not so much to drum up some bad thoughts, but is to share that you can learn from these situations and you can move forward, no matter what they are, how dire or how small, whatever it might be. But walk us through one of your experiences and tell us how that helped you gain even more momentum as you move forward in your business, in your career, in your life.
I guess it's probably an ongoing challenge, although the older I get, I would like to think the less so. Busting into the very male industry as an automotive journalist, as a driver, as anything, has been such a tremendous challenge. In fact, over time, I realized that I have to be harder working, more prepared, and on it in a way that a lot of my male colleagues in the field have never had to be. I also don't have the benefit of going and playing golf with the automotive executives on the weekend or hanging at the bar because the perception is bad and I won't do that. So, the barriers were high. And when I got to one particularly prestigious publication where I worked for a long time, there was an incumbent of some magnitude, a male who had covered the industry. And it took me a few months to realize that I wasn't getting invited to car launches, to long leads. And I finally called up a couple car companies and said, tell me why I should be there. I'm the one writing this column. Like, well, because the invitations are still going to him and I guess he's not passing them along to you. So, that was a tough moment, and I had to kind of face into it and realize that I had to build my own relationships in the industry one by one, event by event, and that wasn't going to end anytime soon. And when I went inside the automotive world and especially spent lots of time in Europe, but with Jaguar in particular, again, all male culture, there were times that I would walk into a room for a meeting and there would be people already in the room and some gentleman in a suit would look at me and say, "Oh, I take my coffee with milk."
Oh no, I was hoping you weren't going to say that.
Sure.
Oh gosh. Wow.
Or my favorite was getting to Hockenheim once for the AMG CLK GTR launch of the road car they did. It was, 1.8 million at the time. There were 11 journalists there only. I was the only one from the US because somehow the Buff Books had angered AMG recently. And we get out there, it's a cold morning. Mark Webber is the amazing driver on hand to show us what not to do in the car. And it's time for us to drive. And 10 guys look at me and go, ladies first, cold tires, cold track. And I was so mad. I got out and I, set a great lap. But I've also learned that being angry and fighting like that and trying to prove myself that way doesn't work either. So, I think it takes time for people to really trust that a woman knows about this industry. And, that's an ongoing hurdle.
Well, it's one of the many reasons I wanted to feature an entire month of women here on Cars Yeah, is to show other women, either young or old, who would like to get into the world, the automotive world, the business world of the automotive industry, that it's possible and that there's a lot of women who have done it. I had Denise McCluggage, the late, great Denise McCluggage, on my show. I was so thrilled to have her as a guest a few months before she passed. And, back in the 50s and 60s, even worse. And she talked about the stride she had to make and how she had to really fight her way into that journalism role. And she did it through her brilliant driving and her very matter-of-fact way of doing things. And you and I, in our pre-show chat, I talked about my wife who worked in the engineering field. And when she graduated from UCSD, she was one of only 2 women who got an engineering degree, and she went right into her field, and she was the only woman in her office, and she faced those issues all the time. And she just decided, you know what, where I'm going to beat them, if that's a good way to approach it, but where I'm going to, sustain myself here is through my brains and my knowledge. And she's very smart. So you can't compete with someone who has a very smart brain in their skull if yours isn't quite as sharp as theirs is. But have you felt that nowadays it's improved dramatically, or is it still an issue that happens with some of those buffoon guys out there that don't know how to act right?
Well, it's an interesting question, Mark. I think that it's shifted a little bit. I do think it's somewhat better. I mean, there's a look in a man's eyes I can always see when I'm in an interview situation or a conversation. This veil comes down and they just cannot believe I know anything about cars. So I can feel it. But in general, I would say that happens a whole lot less.
Good.
At this point in my career, though, the funny thing that happens is a bit of ageism as well. Not to say that I'm old, because Lord knows inside I feel 29, but there comes
you are, aren't you?
Well, 31, but don't tell anyone.
Okay, I won't.
I know some great young guys who love cars, say on Instagram, and it's taken a little while to befriend them because they think, what does she know? She's older. Yeah. She was in it back in the day. So there's also that. And when they realize some of the experience I have, that kind of warms it all up. So, it's just, it takes time and patience and determination to just hang in there and prove yourself and be the person you want to be. And eventually they get it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just hit them a little harder with the mallet. Sometimes you got to do that. So don't tell them I said so, but sometimes that's what it takes.
Is that permission? Do I have permission?
Of course. Yeah. Do whatever you want, Sue. I'm not going to tell you not to do anything. That's for sure. You're way smarter than me. So you just do what you want to do and I'll follow your lead. So that's my goal here. Well, I would love for you to share a story about your first really special vehicle in your life. Maybe that first car that you saved up and finally got, or I don't know, maybe it was a really cool car you got to race or drive or do something in, and maybe share a memory or two about that ride.
My first great car that I saved up for was the original E24, a 1986 M6 BMW, Ooh. And I loved that car. I actually cried when I sold it. I moved to Manhattan, and it just made no sense to buy garage space for it. But the really special thing happened much later in my life when I got number 7 of a run of 36 of Dan Gurney's Alligator motorcycles.
What? Oh my gosh. How cool is that?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And Dan and Evie were my kids' godparents. So I was lucky enough to get to know him very well. And she's probably the most amazing woman on earth in our world. So the experience was amazing to get this extraordinary bike. And Dan used to go on motorcycle rides every Sunday. So you'd gather in front of his house in Orange County and, usually go ride the Crest or, a bunch of different places we used to go. And this motorcycle, the Alligator, as you know, is feet forward and hands forward. And it's super long wheelbase. So your butt is kind of at the midpoint of the rear wheel. So from behind, they're actually kind of hard to spot. But anyway, it's a very unusual riding position. And Dan's advice to me was just make sure your feet stay on the pegs because if they don't,
you'll scrape your knees.
It's going to get caught and it's going to go behind you and kind of, rip your leg off. It's like, okay. So I get on the bike. I'm so proud. It's Sunday morning. There are all these people around. I'd ridden a lot at that point. And I thought, I got this. So I get on the bike and right in front of Dan, almost immediately dump it.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
I didn't hurt it, thank God, but it was pretty embarrassing. So,
yeah. Those bikes, when that bike came out, it was so cool and unique. And Dan, he's a hero of mine. I tried to get him on this show. And it was when he was not doing very well and just had to cancel some interviews. And eventually, of course, we lost him. And I never got to record his voice. But I did get to meet him several times at events. But I remember when that bike came out, just looking at it and going, man, this is completely out of the box thinking in every way. And I rode bikes for a while. I had a Ducati Monster and a MV Agusta F4. And back when I was a kid, I rode dirt bikes, so I love bikes and things, but that is very cool. Do you still have that bike by any chance?
Oh, divorce and life move things along. So
Yes.
I do not have it anymore, but
Yeah.
I had my moment with it. And that's the most important. I still have the helmet that matches it too. I didn't sell that, but
Well, there you go. That's cool. Well, that leads me to my seller's remorse question. It sounds like there may be a few in your life, but there's one car in particular. And let's take money out of the equation because that just clouds everything. More emotional. Is there a bike or a car that you had in your garage that you kind of wish you had back?
100%. And even worse, the man who owns the car now loves it so much, he emails me pictures all the time.
Ouch.
I keep saying, David, stop. I don't, please, it hurts every time. So when I left Europe and came to Irvine with Jaguar to run North America, we had just opened up this great office building in Irvine. And that was when Ford put the luxury brand headquarters here. I thought it's time to own a Jag, and I've always loved the E-Type more than any other car.
Oh, no.
That's in my realm.
E-Type.
So I had an old friend back in Connecticut who had bought a 1967 Series 1.5 coupe.
Yeah.
He ordered it new in 1967.
Wow.
He deleted the side mirrors because he thought they were aesthetically unpleasing. And he deleted the radio because why would you ever have an E-Type and listen to anything but the engine? He raced it. He loved the car. I had known him a long time and he was an architect. And I called him up and said, okay, Lee, I want to buy an E-Type. Nobody knows more about the details than you. Where should I look? I don't trust a lot of the cars that are out there. And he said, Sue, I'm going to sell you my car if you want. I was like, what? He said, yeah, I think I'm sort of done with it. It's time. And I know that you will appreciate it in a way that a lot of other people really wouldn't. And I said, well, that's so nice, but I probably can't afford it. And he said, no, I'll just say, how about 15,000?
Yeah. Oh, done. Sold.
Okay. So I had it shipped across the country and I had it delivered to our office building because I had learned that none of the people on our marketing team at Jaguar had ever actually been inside of a vintage Jag.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, you don't have to drive it, but every one of you, you're all welcome to drive it. But please just at least come sit in it, smell it, hear it, feel it with me.
Yeah.
And it was life-changing for everybody. I mean, the cigar lighter, right? And there's all these touches in that car. And so I loved that car to bits, but I did sell it finally. And as I said, now I get to look at it.
Yeah, that's the car that started it for me. It all started with a Matchbox by Leslie my dad bought me at the hardware store when I was probably 5. I still have it sitting here on my desk, a little red one. And and then when I was detailing cars in junior high and high school, I had a client that had one, a V12, a later series car. And he never put the top on it, always had the top down. I'd ride my bike down to South Mission Beach, pick the car up, drive it back to La Jolla, detail it. I remember he loved what I did because I cleaned all the spokes with a shoelace. I'd dip a shoelace in soap and I'd, rub it back and forth between all the laces in the wheels. Oh, I love driving that car. I felt like a king. They're beautiful. Nice. Well, in a way, it's kind of cool that you know where the car is and it's being loved, but I get it. It's kind of a tease every time. Hey, look at your old car. I've got it.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I'd love for you to talk about what has you excited and fired up this year. I know Glovebox Media is a big part of your life, but what has Sue excited and fired up about her life around cars here in 2019?
So I think I told you in an email before this interview that I actually literally just started Glovebox earlier this year. And so it's a nascent venture, but it's one that's been in my heart for a long time. And, to me, helping brands that I care about and only brands that I care about tell their best, most authentic stories in the most visceral way is the best gift I can give back to the world based on all the wonderful experiences I've had in automotive. And so Glovebox Name, first of all, it needs never be a big thing. I want to keep it nimble because I think one of the things in the world, especially of communications and marketing and content, very few things are nimble these days as I well know. And that's very important to me. And a glove box is obviously small, and it's the place where you put only the most important things as you want to adventure in your vehicle around the world. So that's that's where the name comes from. We are so interested in this equation that people, if you can help them understand why people desire a brand, there's to build the sense of desire around something, immediately builds loyalty, which leads to, this connection, this ongoing connection and engagement, which leads eventually to a transaction or an action, depending on the brand. And so that's my joy, helping near luxury brands become luxury brands, right? That's the sort of thing to me that we can specialize in, that very few people can. And we obviously, given my background and the few trusted partners I'm working with, we really have experience at the highest levels of media and marketing. And, we have VR partners, we have production studio partners, we have great partners who are all people we've acid tested so that our clients don't have to just really move that needle for a brand, measure the movement, and, repeat, improve, repeat. So we believe in data and ROI, but we also believe in that visceral desire that needs to surround a brand in order to gain loyalty. So we're really excited. Yeah.
I love everything about it. Fantastic. Yeah. Having a marketing background and loving how you promote brands and more particularly why people love brands so much and why do they get so connected to them is really fascinating to me. And in my mind, what it really comes down to is how it makes them feel.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's not even really the brand. I had a guy one time back when I was young, and he said he was trying to help me learn about marketing and all this. And he said, "Why do you wear a shirt that has a polo pony on it? Do you play polo?" And I, of course, had a Ralph Lauren shirt on. I said, "No, I've never played polo. I don't even watch polo. I have no interest." He said, "So why are you wearing that shirt?" And he really was making me think, right? And I started saying he goes, "No, that's not why. No, that's not why. No." And finally it went down to, because it makes me feel good about myself, because it's showing others that I maybe made it to a certain level in life, because it's an expensive shirt. The fabric feels really good against my skin. It's well made. It's representing a brand that has a very high esteem, and therefore I feel very good about wearing it. And that's where he was driving me towards. And I think it's the same for cars, don't you? A lot of people that
Absolutely.
Car is a manifest of them in a way, and how they feel about life. Yeah.
Cars are that. And even more important, there are really no lemons anymore. So the purchase choice is all the more subjective, and brands have all the more room and the challenge to figure out what they really stand for. And sometimes as a brand, you've got so many other things going on that are priorities in your business. It's very hard to identify that visceral soul that really moves other people. And I guess that's one of the things that I've always loved to do, which is sort of spot the great stories that hit the editing room floor. One brand I've worked with a lot over the years is INFINITI. And a couple of years ago, we helped get the first car imported officially from the United States to Cuba. Big story that I did when I was at Time Inc. with INFINITI. Why? Because 2 years prior to that, I was talking with Alfonso Albaisa, the head of design, at a car show, and he was showing me this amazing concept. And he has this lovely accent. And I said, "Alfonso, I've known you a long time, but I've never asked you, where are you from?" He said, "I'm Cuban."
Cuban.
I said, "Wow, well, let's take an INFINITI to Cuba." Well, it took 2 years, more money than I want to tell you, and paperwork, including Homeland Security, and it was nuts. But INFINITI being an amazing partner and timing, we managed to get it done, but it took 2 years of determination.
Ridiculous,
and along the way, I realized Alfonso had actually never been to Cuba.
Oh,
so, well, his parents were exiles. They escaped during the revolution, and so he had grown up in the Everglades with pictures of Cuba around him in a Cuban American place. So when I went with him to Cuba and shot the story, he was meeting cousins for the first time face to face. And even it was enormously emotional. And would a Japanese luxury brand normally have thought of that story? No, of course not. But
No.
so credible, right? He had all the credentials to be a reason to do a story like that. So those are the sorts of things that I love to do. And
what an awesome story. Well, and remember when INFINITI first came out, those first ads, television ads they did, where you didn't even see the car, just made waves through the industry. Like, what? You're advertising a car and we don't even see it? You see water. I remember water going over rocks, and
yes,
they were evicting a mood in you and obviously teasing you with, okay, something's coming. You got to watch for this. I thought it was brilliant advertising at the time. I know a lot of people, my friends who were not car people, thought it was ridiculous. And I thought, well, you don't get it. You're not a car person. So it doesn't matter. They're appealing to something different here, but what an awesome story.
They were going after something, and as you know, the same year Lexus launched in the United States. So they were also trying to be as different as possible from that and speak to the aesthetic, the mood, the soul of the brand. And it's their 30th anniversary. So I hope they surprise us with some more unusual campaigns.
Well, I hope so. 30 years ago? Where did my life go? Oh my gosh, that's frightening.
Well, we don't age. We don't age.
That's right. Yeah, we're both 31, Sue, right?
Yeah.
That's right. I'm going to act 31 too. All right, Sue, up next is the last lap. Before we put the pedal to the metal, let's say thank you to today's Cars Yeah sponsors. Do you know the best way to protect your vehicle, both the exterior and the interior, is with a car cover? I've been using Covercraft car covers since 1975. That's right. 1975. It's a fast, easy, and inexpensive way to keep your vehicle looking new. Covercraft has been manufacturing premium quality exterior and interior covers for over 50 years with a stellar reputation for durability and design. They're the world's largest manufacturer of custom patterned vehicle covers that are crafted to fit over 80,000 patterns and growing. They are the only cover I'll put on my vehicles. You can choose from a wide variety of fabrics, styles, colors, and more. From full cover designs for factory to custom-made vehicles, plus convertible top covers, trucks, truck cab coolers, motorcycles, scooters, ATVs, trailers, campers, personal watercraft, and a wide variety of custom features. Covercraft is the right choice. Learn more today at covercraft.com and tell them Mark sent you. That's covercraft.com. Are you looking for a way to get your products or services into the ears of thousands of automotive enthusiasts around the globe? I can help. This is Mark Green here at Cars Yeah, and I'd be honored to be an influencer and ambassador for your brand in a unique and personal way. 5 days a week, thousands of subscribers and listeners enjoy the Cars Yeah podcast and website. Contact me today and I'll show you how at mark@carsyeah.com or connect with me through the Cars Yeah website at carsyeah.com. Hey, Mark Green here from the Cars Yeah podcast. Did you know you can now see me on the Cars Yeah TV show? That's right. Cars Yeah is now on MAV TV. I visit some of the past Cars Yeah guests and take you along for the ride. Go to mavtv.com to learn more where you can enjoy Cars Yeah TV. MAV TV is also available on DirecTV, Fubo TV, Fios by Verizon, or you can stream it through mavtv.com online. And they said I only had a face for podcasting. All right, Sue, we are back, and I have a very introspective question for you. If you woke up tomorrow and you were a vehicle, a car, motorcycle, truck, whatever, parked in the garage, you'd manifested into this iron and rubber and oil and gas thing, what would Sue be?
This was a tough one for me, and I will be honest with you because I believe in being honest. I called up 2 car geek friends and said, I'm stumped. Because I can only think of the cars I wish I was.
Yeah. Well, me too.
And I'm not Heidi Klum, so I can't say that one. Darn it. So these 2 enormously interesting car geeks came back with 2 very different answers. And one was the Alfa Romeo 33 Pininfarina concept, which you can Google, and it's rare and gorgeous and kind of quirky. So I can see why he said it. And by the way, that car geek was Winston Goodfellow, who I know.
Oh, he's been a guest. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And the other was the Monteverdi High, which is an even weirder, more rare car than the Alfa Romeo concept. It's a one-off, and it was a Swiss built, and half of my heritage is Swiss, which is why my other car geek friend suggested the Monteverdi. Powerful, raw, not very subtle, It had a Hemi, right? 426 with aluminum cylinder heads, and the engine protruded into the cockpit and actually was blocking the view between the passenger and the driver. I sadly have never driven it, but I thought, what great answers. It tells you a few things about me if you look at the pictures of both of them, but hats off to them for answering the question for me.
Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, the Monteverde reminds me a lot of like the Ghibli.
Yes.
Their Bizzarini. Those cars, I mean, if you look at the Bizzarini, that engine is like almost in the back seat, even though it's in the front of the car, but it's behind the front axles, but it protrudes back into the car. And not unlike a little bit, maybe even the Pantera or any of those cars that, were just European bodied, powered by American iron. I mean, great combination. Maybe not the best to drive sometimes and a little hot and, a little persnickety, but maybe you're a little hot sometimes, a little persnickety. I don't know.
Well, I may run hard, but I would not like to think I'm persnickety. I'll let other people answer that for you some other day.
There you go. Thanks for letting me take that liberty. All right, we are entering the last lap, and I'm going to fire off a series of questions and ask you to give our listeners some very quick blips of the throttle answers. So here we go. What's the best automotive advice you've ever received?
From Rob Dickinson at Singer Vehicle Design, which he has spray painted on his wall. Everything is important.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, he's been a guest on the show twice now, and what's really cool about that? It sticks to something my dad taught me years ago. He was an architect and an artist, and aesthetics were important to him. And was working on a school project, and he was kind of helping me. I was building a model of the Eiffel Tower, but I had to do it in a way that was very different, I guess should say, maybe a different touch. And I was getting frustrated. It was taking longer than I liked, and I wanted to go surfing. And I said, well, this is good enough. And he just stopped me, and he said, no, you don't ever go through life saying those words. Those are the kiss of death. Everything is important that you do because it has your touch on it. And when I met Rob and I saw that, I have his book. I'm looking at it right here on my coffee table. With everything is important. And he's actually put that on one of the door sills of one of his most recent builds.
That's right.
Of his cars. So I love that. Yeah. Shout out to Rob. If you could share a personal habit that you have that you believe has contributed to you many successes, what would it be?
Well, I've mentioned relentless drive and patience, which I'm actually quite short on, but I've tried. I think a number one tool for me is humor.
Yeah.
Humor is a door opener. It's something that engages other people, which leads to building great relationships, which is really everything about this industry. The people are as amazing as the cars. And you can cry or you can laugh in life, and I've always chosen to laugh.
Why not laugh? Yeah, absolutely. How about a resource? There are incredible resources at our fingertips these days. Is there one in particular you'd like to share?
There is. It's actually a magazine that I have a particular love for called Lollipop.
Oh, tell me about it.
Lollipop is a beautiful, super high-end magazine that covers Formula One. And the founder and photographer behind it is an amazing man named Joshua Paul. He is one of the few journalists to ever get a lifetime access pass to the pits in Formula One. And what sets him apart is that he shoots everything that he shoots at a Grand Prix on a 105-year-old graphics 4x5 camera.
Okay, now I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that means he can only shoot 20 images per Grand Prix, given the setup time he needs. And if you look at the work, everybody go to Lollipop. You gotta go look at his website because the work is extraordinary. And to think that he's capturing live action in that format with that level of setup required just blows your mind. He's amazing.
Yeah, I would love to get him on this show. Maybe you could make an introduction.
I would be happy to.
That would be very, very cool. I know who you're talking about now. Yes, most definitely. Now, if I could wave my magic wand, and you've talked to so many people, I mean, you've already done this, but is there one person in particular, living or deceased, you'd love to sit down and have a drink with?
100%. Are you ready?
I am.
I really do want to do this. Actually, it's a terrible tease. I would love to sit down with the Jean Bugatti, Ettore oldest son. That man, in his 20s, designed two of my most favorite cars, the Type 57 SC Atlantic and the Royale, the Type 41. He was tragically killed when he was 30, swerving away from a a drunk driver. And what a loss, because what a young man to run such an amazing company. And although Ettore was incredibly impressive, Jean had design and engineering and the capability of running a car company that young. So every picture I've ever seen of him, he also looks like somebody you would love to talk to. He looks like happy and engaging and lovely. And so that's my drink.
That would be very cool. Have you been to the Bugatti Museum in France?
I have.
Isn't that a exquisite
mind-blowing
place? Yeah. It's pretty darn cool. Yeah, it just blows you away. You almost don't believe what you see when you walk in that room in all those cars.
It's like a dealer parking lot of Bugattis.
Yes, yeah. And of course, the story behind the Trump brothers and all their hiding away and their illicit adventures and trying to keep those cars from the tax collector and all that. But thankfully, the government in France had some wisdom there, and they said, you know what? We've got a treasure here. We need to share this with the world. So, for those listeners that have never been to that museum, take the time and go see it because it is absolutely spectacular. How about a book, Sue? Is there a book you've read that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yes, and it's taken me some time to find it because I borrowed it once from somebody, and it's the Enzo Ferrari Memoirs.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's an autobiography translated into English, but it's interesting because the translation of his tone of voice is actually pretty good. It's very credible. It's like you're listening to Enzo describe things in his very cranky, biased way. And it's a fascinating book. I love it.
Fantastic. Well, I'll remind our listeners you can find all these wonderful resources Sue has shared with us today on her very own Cars Yeah show notes page. Just go to carsyeah.com, type in Sue Callaway, and that page will pop right up, including a link to this book. See if we can find anybody who's carrying that. Otherwise, you may have to go to eBay and find somebody selling it used. But great book to have on your shelf. All right, Sue, we're up to the checkered flag, and this last question can be a bit of a doozy. Today, I'm going to buy you any cool collector car on the planet, but there's a couple rules to this little game we're playing today. One is you can't sell it to buy a bunch of other toys with. You have to drive it. No garage queens here, but I have a feeling that's not a problem for you. And it's the only collector car you can have in your garage, so choose wisely.
This is tough, too. I love the Aston Martin DBR1 more than life itself, but my choice is a McLaren F1.
Ah, okay. Well,
best car I've ever driven.
Oh, and you've driven one, too. Wow, well, I'm jealous. I've only sat in one. I've never been able to drive one, but the McLaren F1, I've had several guests who've wanted those cars. And I'll tell you a quick story. I was at the lodge during Pebble Beach Car Week with my son. He was about 12, I think, that year. And a guy drove up right in front of the lodge, stopped his car to let the valet park it. It was covered in bugs, had Colorado license plates. He jumped out, and I had to go over and shake his hand and say, "You drove this from Colorado?" He goes, "Of course I did." And my son had never seen one. He's like, "Well, the seat's in the middle. That's really odd." And he goes, "Hop in, kiddo." And so Blake climbed in, and it was just, I thought that was pretty cool that he drove that car to Car Week and was using it and enjoying it. And I got to go to the McLaren factory when they started building those. I was actually importing Facom tools at the time, and Facom got me a special visit to that facility. And they had, on the side of the car, they had a little compartment that popped up, and there was a set of Facom tools there that came with the car, which was kind of neat. Facom being, it's F-A-C-O-M-E, being a French tool company. I used to import a lot of those tools and sell them. Really nice tools, by the way. But the McLaren F1, so when I buy you this car, I want to make sure I get you the right color. What color would you like?
You know, Mark, it doesn't matter.
Of course not. Perfect answer.
The fun is on the inside for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Very nice. Maybe I could talk Ralph out of his orange one. That
Please.
Might be. Yeah, I'll give him a call today, see what he'll say, see if he answers the phone. Well, Sue, you've taken us on a great ride today. What fun this has been. I've really enjoyed getting to know you better. I want to thank you for sharing part of Women's History Month with me here on Cars Yeah. 21 incredible women I've had the pleasure and honor of interviewing. Could you offer us one little parting piece of wisdom or guidance before you rip off into the sunset there on the Coast Highway in beautiful California in that McLaren F1?
Yes, more fun from stop sign to stop sign than most people have in a lifetime. My parting words of advice. If you get no for an answer, you're asking the wrong question.
I'm going to write that down. I like that very, very much. Very cool. And what's the best way for our listeners to follow along with you and what you're doing?
Well, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at Sue Callaway, and Glovebox Media is also just launching now on Instagram and will be on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, probably by the time this actually airs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll make sure I put links to those on Sue's show notes page. Make sure you go there and follow what she is up to. I think you're going to be duly impressed and learn a lot of things too, just like we have today. Sue, thanks for being so generous with your time, your expertise, and for sharing your many incredible experiences. I think I could talk to you for days. Until you and I talk again, I'll see you down the road.
Mark, you're the best. Thank you so much for having me. It means a lot.
The pleasure's all mine. It's been great. You take care of your cars, but who takes care of your investments? Tune-ups aren't just for engines. Updating your financial plan is important too. Your GPS may take you from A to B, but it won't help you on the road to financial freedom. For that, you need a good co-pilot and a very trusted advisor. Chris Kimball, CFP, is just the man for the job. He'll guide you down that road without driving you crazy. For over 25 years, Chris has helped people just like you and me with their financial planning and investments. With a master's degree in financial services, he is eminently qualified, and he's a car guy too. Learn more at chrisvkimball.com or call 866-ON-A-PLAN. Securities through Money Concepts Capital Corp., member FINRA SIPC. CK Financial Services is not affiliated with Money Concepts Capital Corp.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.